This book destroyed its author. It was disowned by its publisher and remained out of print for almost 40 years. This book was described as an attack on the very fabric of our society. This book alleged that Jesus was a mushroom. I'm David Thrussell, and this is the Forbidden Book Club. The past is a mystery, a great puzzle of which we only have a few tiny pieces assembled largely in the dark. In the vast story of humankind and the eons of our planet Earth, 2,000 years is but the blink of an eye. And yet, even events of just 2,000 years ago can still provoke scandal and violent debate. Onto this stage stepped linguist and biblical scholar John Marco Allegro, a man whose radical theories would set the world on fire.
I'm puzzled. Are you really seriously suggesting that Jesus Christ was a mushroom?
Put pretty blankly, yes.
Surely you don't suggest that Jesus Christ and his various disciples were not human creatures.
Yes. You are dealing with a secret cult, a secret society. The stories of the New Testament contain certain incantations, certain magic names which were really the names of the mushroom.
No, but the writers, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, these men who wrote the story, you are telling me they did not exist?
No.
None of them existed?
No, it's part of mythology. It's part of mushroom mythology.
Allegro would argue that early spirituality was deeply rooted in nature, survival, and sex.
Life is rain. Rain begets vegetation on the earth as spermatozoa begets offspring in the womb. God, the creator, the source of rain, must therefore be the sperm of creation and the heavenly penis from which it spills. The storm is the orgasm of God. The drops of rain are the words of God. Earth is the womb of creation. Through her furrows, her labia, she receives the Lord's seed. And deep within her uterus, there burn the eternal fires of fermentation.
John Marco Allegro was born in 1923 and joined the Royal Navy at the height of the Second World War.
When I left the Royal Navy in 1947, I began to train for the Methodist ministry as a theological student at Manchester University. This led me to a study of the ancient Semitic languages, including Old Testament Hebrew and Aramaic, and I became progressively more interested in the language and less in theology. And so I probed deeper to the very beginnings of civilization.
Also in 1947, on the apocalyptic shores of the Dead Sea, a Bedouin shepherd made a seismic discovery. Hidden in long-forgotten caves were miraculously preserved parchments, scrolls written in Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic over 2,000 years ago. The Dead Sea Scrolls ignited a public sensation. Were these ancient parchments the very first building blocks of the Christian faith and the Bible? The public were enthralled, and the world held its breath for the team of eminent scholars, which included John Allegro, to release the first translations. And they waited and waited and waited. For over a decade, the scrolls were essentially silent. Some alleged a Vatican conspiracy to bury the Dead Sea Scrolls and their perhaps shocking revelations. John Allegro was a world-renowned biblical expert and the only non-Catholic and non-religious member of the Dead Sea Scrolls team. And by 1970, he'd had enough. But nobody, not even John Allegro, was ready for the storm that was about to break. Released in May of 1970, his book, The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross, unleashed a hurricane of controversy. Tracing words and names back to their sometimes 5,000-year-old Sumerian roots, John Allegro believed he had made an incredible discovery.
For primitive man, life was almost entirely dependent upon rain. It came from the sky to make things grow. And in his simplicity, he came to believe that somewhere up above him was a mighty phallus in the sky, and that rain was his semen that came down to fertilize the womb we call Earth. From this innocent reasoning, all the religions of that area were born. The ancient cults of the Greeks and Persians, Judaism, Christianity, even Islam, all had their origins in this basic idea of a heavenly phallus. Man thought he could help to stimulate rain in much the same way as he did orgasms on Earth, by singing, dancing, orgiastic displays, and above all by performing the sex act, particularly in the fields where the sacred semen was most needed. It was then a natural step to want to share the secrets of how to control the power and knowledge of the heavenly phallus. But how?
Allegro was talking about ancient Middle Eastern fertility cults, and, he would argue, drug rituals and secret codes.
Paradise was only for the favored few. Rarely were those secrets ever committed to writing. Normally, they would be passed between the priest and the initiate by word of mouth. But if, for some dramatic reason, persecution or the disruption caused by war, it became necessary to write down the precious names of the drug, the manner of its use, and the secret incantations, it was written in a secret form, a code, hidden in a story containing puns or some other wordplay. I believe that this is the basic truth about the stories in the New Testament. The key which unlocked the secret is philology, the study of words and language.
John Allegro had worked with the Dead Sea Scrolls for many years, piecing together, sometimes with fragments of just one word, the earliest versions of Bible stories ever discovered. Allegro also compiled vast charts of what he believed were the very roots of language. The results were controversial, to say the least. But although Allegro freely admitted that some of his linguistic lineages were highly speculative, he insisted that what he had found was credible.
Christ, for instance, far from being a real person, is now shown to be merely another name for the drug plant, Amanita muscaria, the fly agaric mushroom. The secrets, if they were not to be lost forever, had to be committed to writing. And yet if found, the documents must give nothing away, or betray those who still dared defy the Roman authorities and continue their religious practices. The ruse failed. Christians, hated and despised, were hauled forth and slain in their thousands. The cult well nigh perished. What eventually took its place was a travesty of the real thing, a mockery of the drug's power to raise men to heaven and give them the longed-for glimpse of God. What began as a hoax became a trap, even to those who believed themselves to be the spiritual heirs of the mystery religion and took to themselves the name Christian. The crucifixion story was a ruse to guard the sacred mushroom, but the hoax became a trap we call Christianity. The source of the secret drug? It was the sacred mushroom.
Allegro also asserted that the Christian cross was based on the shape of a mushroom, the virgin birth inspired by the apparently seedless reproduction of fungi, and the architecture of churches designed with ritual sexual illusions. People were outraged and Christianity was rocked. Just prior to the book's release, John Allegro resigned his position at Manchester University, expecting it to soon become untenable. But even John Allegro was stunned by the reaction. Fellow academics and high-profile linguists declared the book to be an essay in fantasy, and even Allegro's sister, an ordained minister, violently denounced him. Privately, John Allegro expected the revelations to destroy the church and usher in a new era of personal moral responsibility. But the church endured with its vast holdings and global influence, while many questioned John Allegro's methods and even his sanity.
No, but the writers, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, these men who wrote the story, you are telling me they did not exist?
The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross had a profound impact when it was released, producing at least 2 answer or refutation books. But it left its author essentially outcast, broken, and forgotten. Discovered by a shocked window cleaner, John Allegro died penniless, alone, and estranged from his family on February 17th, 1988. Locked out of academia and struggling to be published, Allegro had effectively been cancelled years before the term even existed. But out of that obscurity, in the decades that followed, other scholars, other writers made remarkable discoveries. Forgotten medieval Christian artworks that appeared to feature mushrooms, lots of them. Today, the debate still rages. Though he was a world-renowned biblical and linguistic expert, did John Marco Allegro go too far? Make too many speculations and too many assumptions? Make linguistic connections that lacked context and allow his rebellious, relentlessly questioning spirit to cloud his judgment? Or does Christianity have secret roots in ancient psychedelic fertility cults that might even have continued underground into the Middle Ages through the Gnostics, the Cathars, and other heretics? And if events of just 2,000 years ago can provoke such firestorms of controversy, what other secrets might still lay hidden in our deeper past? censored, suppressed, forgotten. These are the words of heretics, eccentrics, and visionaries. Expand your mind, broaden your horizons. Join us next time in the Forbidden Book Club.